to my channel. If you're new here, welcome, and please don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. Hit the notification bell for future videos. Today I'm going to be making pizza, and I've been wanting to do this for a little while actually. I just haven't, but I'm gonna start out by making a dough, and then I'm going to work on some toppings. So let me show you what I'll be using. I have a few different recipes for pizza dough, but today I'm going to be doing flour, and this is mostly bread flour, but I didn't have quite enough, so I just topped it off with some all-purpose flour. You can also use 00 flour, but the results may be slightly different. I have some salt, a package of dry yeast, and some warm water. So a couple of things I want to do first. To a little bit of warm water, I'm gonna drop in my yeast. This is dry yeast. And I'm just gonna mix this up a little bit. And set that aside. And then to my flour, I'm just going to combine my salt. Now, some people put sugar in the yeast, but I'm not going to do that. Okay, so once my yeast has kind of gotten a little bit bubbly, I'm going to start putting this together, and I'm gonna first add this water. And just with your hands, you can combine it. And then you're gonna add, again, some more warm water slowly. I have about 2 cups total, but I'll see if I need the whole thing or not. You just want to add water until this comes together. So once this is barely come together, I am going to add some flour on my work surface, just so that it doesn't stick. It is probably going to need a little extra flour, just so that the dough doesn't stick so much. But you do want to knead this until it is smooth. I've gone ahead and removed any jewelry so I can handle this a lot better. If you need to add more flour as you go ahead and do that. And if you're someone who doesn't like to get your hands dirty as you cook, well, maybe this is not for you. I have a bench scraper. It's really easy to scrape off the excess dough from your hands. I do not, so I'm just gonna have to pick it off of my hand. No, this is not something that I wear gloves for. That would be disgusting. So besides, this is just for home anyways. Trick to getting flour off your hands also is just to get some flour in your hands and just rub it in between your fingers, and that should help you out. And now this is finally coming together a lot better. When it starts not to stick so much to your hands and to the board, that's when you know you're close to being done. You want to knead this until this is nice and smooth. And then what I'm gonna do in a large bowl, I'm gonna get some olive oil and just gonna kind of rub this around. And this is gonna be so your dough doesn't stick. I'm gonna pick up my dough. And turn it as well, just so that it is coated with a thin layer of olive oil. And then this is going to get covered lightly over the top with a kitchen towel, and it's going to be left alone to rise for a couple of hours. So while my dough is rising, I've cleaned up a little bit, and now I want to work on a couple of different toppings. I'm pretty sure I'm going to end up making 2 different pizzas. So the first one that I want to do is going to be a mushroom, arugula, and cheese, and then the second one will be a tomato-based topping. I have some olive oil in a pan, and I've got some sliced mushrooms. I do just want to saute these with a little bit of salt and pepper, and I am going to cook these down. Now the reason that I saute the mushrooms instead of putting them on the pizza raw is to get rid of the excess moisture to avoid a soggy crust. And now I'm just going to make some pizza sauce. I'm going to be using some whole tomatoes as well as some garlic, oregano, and then I'll use a pinch of salt, pepper, and olive oil. So for the pizza sauce, I'm going to crush the tomatoes by hand. I'm going to end up slicing the garlic instead of chopping it, and I am going to slice it thinly. How much garlic you want is entirely up to you. And I'm going to start my pizza sauce with some sliced garlic, chili flake, and olive oil in a cold pan. I'm going to bring it up to temperature and then add my crushed tomatoes, salt, and pepper. Okay, so now that I have my garlic sizzling, I am going to add my hand-crushed tomatoes. And I'm not adding any additional water. So to this, I have my cracked black pepper, I have a pinch of salt here, it's already dissolving, and a pinch of oregano. Oregano, you know, that's going to be to taste. It can be a strong flavor for some people. However, I do like it, and especially for pizza sauces, that is my go-to herb. But I'm going to stir this around, bring this to a simmer, and let this cook. And I will taste it in about 20 minutes or so to check for seasoning. Maybe it needs a pinch of sugar. I'm not sure yet, but I will check back. Okay, so this is after a couple of hours, and it has risen. Divide this in half. And this is really good. There's a lot of little bubbles in here that I see. All of these bubbles is from the yeast working. And then how you want to work this, you just want to stretch this out. So you can even pull the edge a little bit and just work it that way. The other thing I did beforehand was just get a couple of baking sheets, and I have put a thin layer of olive oil on the bottom. If you have a pizza stone, you can use it. It's not necessary. A baking sheet works just fine. Some people like to put cornmeal down. I do not. So I'm just gonna stretch this. I'm also preheating my oven at 500 degrees. The other thing that you can do, you could just put it on your baking dish and stretch it out that way. And all you have to do, you know, you stretch it a little bit. Sometimes the dough might tear, and just pinch it back together. Now, the other thing that you have the option of doing, you can let the dough rise a second time before putting it into the oven to bake. That is a personal choice. You don't have to do it. The other thing to keep in mind, you can have an irregularly shaped pizza. It doesn't have to be a complete perfect rectangle. It doesn't have to be a circle. You know, just go ahead and stretch the dough to your liking. I'm going to be doing two different toppings. To my first one, I'm just going to brush it slightly with some olive oil. And this is going to get topped with the mushroom. And then I'm going to put it in the oven. About halfway through, I'll take it out and put my cheese that I'm using, which to this I'm going to be doing Taleggio cheese, which is a very creamy, delicious cheese. It's a little funky, but you know, you can use whatever cheese you'd like. That's what I'm going to be choosing to use, as well as fresh arugula. So, but for now, I'm just going to put the mushroom, and it's going to go into the oven until about halfway done, and I'll take it out. So this one I'm going to put in the oven. I'm not going to have it rise a second time, and I'm going to take it out in about maybe 8 minutes to put the cheese on top. My second one, And this is the sauce that I had made, and I did take it out of the pan and let it cool a bit. It's just, you know, tomato, oregano, garlic, crushed red pepper, salt, pepper, and olive oil, and it is very thick. So I am going to spread not a very thick layer, but this is going to be my red pizza. So pizza sauces tend to be thicker than pasta sauces. So to this one with my sauce, I am actually going to put some anchovies on it. You don't have to do this. You can top your pizzas with whatever you would like. However, I am going to dot this with some anchovies that have been cured in olive oil. The other thing I'm going to add is some Parmesan cheese, just a little bit. This is the one time that I make an exception for fish and cheese together. And then a drizzle of olive oil. This one, I am going to let it rise just a little bit while my other pizza is working in the oven. Okay, so I've pulled my first pizza out of the oven. I am going to just kind of strew over some arugula. This is the cheese that I'm using, and because it's very soft, I'm just going to kind of spoon it over, and then it'll melt as it finishes to bake in the oven. This is going to go in to finish baking. Okay, so my second pizza is ready to go into the oven, and I'm about to take my arugula and mushroom out. Here is my mushroom, arugula, and taleggio pizza. I'm just going to sprinkle it with some Maldon salt, which is a flaky salt. And this is going to cool slightly before I cut into it. And since I'm waiting for the second pizza to cook in the oven, one more thing that I'm going to do, I'm going to prepare an Aperol Spritz for myself because it's a Saturday night and I can. So Aperol is this, and it's kind of a milder cousin to Campari. So I'm not even gonna measure. I found my biggest wine glass possible, poured in a shot of that, and then honestly, I'm making this because I have this small bottle of champagne in the refrigerator that is taking space and I need to use it. I have some lemon peel that I got, and so I'm just gonna twist it and put it in, and that's it. I'm gonna cut into this. It's a nice thin crust. If you have a nice big cutting board, you can actually cut it and serve it on your cutting board, but if not, just go ahead and plate it. Nice and crispy. Just to show you, like, it is a thin crust pizza and it is quite crispy and it's not soggy. I haven't made pizza in a really long time, so you know, by the way, this goes really, really fantastic with the Aperol Spritz that I just made. So to my second one, I have a slight dark spot, but that's because it's really thin in that area. I've just taken it out. I do want to let it just kind of rest for a moment. But I washed up some basil, so I'm just going to tear it and put this over. Or you can even just do the whole leaves, it doesn't matter. And this will just give some freshness. Otherwise, you're gonna have a slightly fluffier pizza, but this is just as good as the really thin crust one. Okay, so here we have our two pizzas. One is the mushroom, arugula, and taleggio, and the other one is just a tomato, like a spicy tomato sauce with anchovy and basil, and then my Aperol Spritz. Both are really good. Now, American style pizza tends to be more heavy just because they like to put a lot of toppings on it, and you know what I found, especially when I went to Italy, is that they don't do that. You know, they kind of get the ratio really well. So this pizza crust recipe, I have to credit Stanley Tucci because that is where I pulled it from, and I will have his book linked below, but I will not have the recipe written out. For the toppings, I will go ahead and list that out, especially for the sauce, to be helpful to you. Thank you so much for watching. I'm so glad I did this tonight because that means that I don't have to cook for the next 2 days. Remember to like this video and subscribe to my channel, and I will see you next time.